knows, Laura, and we're just thrilled that you've come. And when I said to people about 2 months ago that you'd agreed to come, I was nervous because you said you hadn't bought your 21 diary yet. So I was nervous you might not,
Yeah.
remember us. But anyhow, bless you, you have. But I had so many people excited that you were coming. But I feel that you've had an extraordinary year like the rest of us had. But the only 5-star that ran in the whole world in the south of France, in Pau, you picked it off. And it's the first time you've picked off a 5-star. And my golly, that is an achievement, because there's an awful lot of people in the world at a very high level riding extremely well. And there's only 5-stars in the world. And one of them is in Australia. So really very, very few people go to Adelaide from the rest of the world. So you're really dealing with 4. And you've picked off the wonderful, wonderful Pierre Michelet designed Pau. And on a horse that you have picked out as a young horse and trained all the way through. Tell us about that start of his.
So I went to Peter Thompson, who I bought Mr. Bass off as a 4-year-old. I went there to look for a bit of a project horse for myself, a bit of a cheap project horse to buy and produce to sell on. When I was there, I saw this big rangy horse trotting round and said, I quite like the look of that one. And he said, it's out of your budget. But fell in love with him and asked if I could try him. And luckily, I had 2 very loyal owners at home in Keith Scott and Karen Bartlett, who I picked up the phone and begged them to join me. So my business sense was always went out the door, because obviously I still own my 3rd, and so that was my money making mission out the window, but got a pretty nice horse instead.
A pretty nice horse who's taken you to great places, but he's an interesting character, isn't he, because he's cautious by nature.
Yeah, he's always been a very shy and timid horse. He's very trusting, luckily. And as long as I've always said that I feel like I have to hold his hand, have done right from the very beginning. And last year, he really, for me, being sat on top, really turned a corner. Before, it's always been quite difficult to explain, because you watch videos back and he always looks phenomenal. And when he was second in Buccleuch, the previous 2018, he visually looked very good and very secure, but he just never felt like he was. And so even when he won Buccleuch in 2019, he'd started to feel like he was turning a corner, but it wasn't until he came out in 2020 that I thought he's finally feels like he knows his job, and he believed in himself. And that was the kind of missing ingredient all along, was that he just lacked a bit of self-belief.
What do you think gave him that? Because you had a very super time at the Europeans at Le Moulin the year before, and then I think you picked him back up and took him to Buccleuch, didn't you, after that, having
yeah
and that cemented him a little bit better, did it?
Yeah, I felt like 2019 was a really tough year, but things kept sort of nearly coming off, but not quite. But like, for example, at Aachen and the Europeans, I felt like even though things went wrong, he learned so much in certain things going right, and it would have been easy to focus just on the negative. And I tried to remember all the things that he'd actually done well and how much he would have learned from those 2 experiences. And then Buccleuch was very much just to go and for him to have a nice time and for him to just get a bit of confidence. And it all came off really. And he it was sort of the perfect track. When I walked the course, I couldn't have been happier with, because it was very as flowing as Buccleuch can be, and there were just a lot of nice let up fences, so it really just got him going. And I think that run for me is what gave him the belief and confidence. And you know, people will say like horses know when they do things right, and I think as much as anything, probably the prize giving in Buccleuch, you know, he stood there and he lapped it all up, and I think that was the moment for him where he thought, you know, I can actually do this, and I've been really clever. And he just came out a totally different horse last year.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I've felt the same with Wide Awake. He won Buccleuch and went on to win Badminton after that. And he was a very uncertain horse of himself. And he had exactly the prize giving gives them something. And they don't know what a rosette means. They don't know what a trophy means. But I feel they pick up the aura around them of everybody being really pleased with them. And that positive vibration that is around them brings them on into a confidence that you must have felt. However, you had very little of a 2020 season. So how did it manifest itself when you started him up again at the beginning of 20?
To be honest, it was, I managed to get one OI run into him at Lincoln before everything went into lockdown. And even just cantering round an intermediate, you know, just hacked him round, but he just felt different. And I said, right from that moment, I said, right, we've got to aim him, you know, the long-term aim's got to be Po. You know, even back then, because going into lockdown I needed something to look forward to, so it was, you know, it was a long shot and no one knew whether it was actually going to happen or not. But I kind of made a plan, and once things started back up in July, I said, you know, Po was the aim, but I was only going to take him there if he continued to feel like he had at Lincoln in the OI, and he did in all his runs. And I guess for me it was the best thing was I was going to Po knowing I'd had like the best preparation. I'd had the 2 4-star short runs that I'd wanted, and he'd been brilliant at both of them, and so I thought, well, it's kind of now or never. If he's going to go to his first 5-star, he couldn't have had better prep. So I kind of couldn't think of an excuse not to take him, really.
So good. Laura, we're going to come back to Po because we want to round this off with a few photos and a couple of discussions about it with your boy. But I want to roll back a few years now to what you came into the world of horses with, and I believe it was show ponies was your thing at that point. I don't know if you pony clubbed before or during. Tell us a bit about that, the beginnings.
Yeah, so because when I was a tiny kid I did all the pony club gymkhana games and all of that when I was very tiny, and then from the age of about 5 I started doing show ponies and mountain and moorlands. Our thing was to buy ponies, unbroken Welsh ponies off the mountains, break them in, produce them and sell them to make money basically. And I think one day I was riding around bareback at one of the shows on one of my little Welsh Mountain ponies, and I got spotted by some producers of show ponies who apparently said that I had quite a good seat and wanted me to ride the show ponies for them. So I rode the sort of platted ponies for them and had the mountain and moorlands of my own, and it's always been all the way through. I was allowed one that was sort of my own, that because obviously we always had to sell them to make money, and I was always very sad at the time of selling them, so Mum let me have one that was my own, that I got to choose if I wanted to sell it or if I didn't want to sell it. So I had one all the way along, and suddenly when I got to the age of 12 I decided that I was quite bored of doing show ponies and wanted to do something a bit more exciting. So I decided to sell my little Welsh Mountain pony that I had at the time, that I'd kept for three years I think, which at the time, like for me, was a very long time to keep them for more than a season, and so he was my pride and joy, and I sold him for quite good money and went and looked for a more exciting pony, which the first one I went to see was just advertised in a block lot in Horse and Hound, 14-2 potential event or show jump pony, a 5-year-old. So we went to try him and I fell in love with him, and Mum, trying to be sensible, said we're not we're not buying the first pony, we go and try. You don't know what you want, we don't know what we're looking for, which is true. We didn't really know what we were looking for. I hadn't at the time decided if I wanted to show jump or event, but decided that I loved him and was a bit of a brat and said, well, it's my money, so I'm going to buy him. And luckily we did, because he turned out to be Noble Springbok, who took me to my first European Championships and won my first gold medal. So it's good to be a brat sometimes, but yeah, I then joined the pony club when I got him, and did the first year, did the pony club teams for show jumping and eventing, but got bitten by the bug of eventing, and here I am now.
So how old were you when you went to buy this little pony that you were determined to have, and how old were you when he won you the gold medal in the in the Pony Europeans?
So I was 12, nearly 13 when we first got him. He was 5, and then I was 15 when I first won medals.
So you did quite a lot of training work in 3 years to get him to that level. I mean, Laura, you are exceptional, because you've starred at every single level. I don't think anybody else has done it. Pony, junior, young riders, and seniors, and it is exceptional, because you've made your own horses. You haven't just jumped on somebody else's, and that was my good fortune, to jump on 1 or 2 of other people's, and you've made your own, like this pony onwards to London, haven't you?
Yeah, I think I've always really enjoyed doing it, and to be honest, it's all I've ever really known, because we've never been in a position to go out and buy a ready-made one. I've obviously, in the last few years, been very fortunate to have had some owners send horses that other people have produced, but the majority, I'd say, the ones that I've had the most success with are ones that I've had from the start, and I love building a partnership with them and knowing that everything that they've learned is what I've taught them. And I just think it's, when you get a good result, it's extra special, because you know that no one else can take any credit for it.
Exactly right. And equally, when it goes wrong, you've only got yourself to blame, which I'd much prefer to have. I don't like having to blame other people. Laura, nobody to get away in a chat without referring to your hideous experience, sadly, at Rachel's Tweezledown, although it was before she took it on, is referred to in the headlines as a near-death experience. Just very briefly explain to us, because you've clearly well got over it now, so I don't think it should hurt you to talk about it. Or some people say don't ever talk about things that go wrong, but you've accepted it and got on with it. When was it? How old were you?
So it was 2013. I can't even remember how old I was then. But yeah, it was a bit of a strange one, because I don't remember anything from the whole day. So in that respect, I think I was very, very lucky, because it's never affected me mentally. And yeah, when I came around from my coma, all I wanted to do was get back on a horse. So luckily it didn't affect me psychologically.
Absolutely wonderful, because sometimes you can't help relating horses to something that's gone wrong, and it just simply went over your head, so to speak. But you had quite a lot of trouble, because I imagine, bang on the head had produced some eye-seeing problems, hadn't it?
Yeah, it was actually a bit random. A bit of bone, when I fractured my shoulder, bit of bone chipped off, got in my bloodstream, and ended up going into my eye, which apparently is very rare. And when it went in, it damaged the optic nerve. So I lost the sight in one eye, and that was tricky to deal with. More because when I first realised, when I was in hospital, I first realised I couldn't see. They did lots of scans and everything, and they first of all just thought it was swelling, and because I had very bad hemorrhaging in my eyes from obviously the concussion, and they said it was, once all the swelling had gone down and everything had settled, that the eyesight would come back. So I went merrily away thinking, it'll be fine. And then about a month later, I went back for more scans, which is when they told me that actually the scans were clearer because all the swelling had gone down, but actually they realised what had happened. So I found that quite difficult. I think I'd have found it easier if they'd told me straight away, because I kind of got my hopes up that I was going to be okay again. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, I'm still here and I could still ride. So I got over it pretty quickly.
It's fascinating because we've all seen one-eyed horses, and in fact the horse that won the Hickstead Derby about 4 or 5 years ago lost his eye only about 6 months before and came into that Devil's Dyke, you know, like this, but he won it. And how did you find you could adjust from always having vision both sides to possibly only having it really one side?
Well, the poor horses suffered a bit, as I used to bounce them off the walls a bit because I thought I was not near the side, and turns out I was. But yeah, I used to walk into things, and as pouring a drink, it would be nowhere near the glass. But yeah, it's amazing how quickly the body adapts to things, and you know, when you don't have an option other than to get on with it and learn, then that's what you do. And I was at that stage just so grateful that I could get on and carry on. And as Yogi said to me at the time, he said, you couldn't see a stride with two eyes, so one eye won't make any difference. And you know, it's things like that, you have to laugh about it and just get on with it. And I was very lucky. The team I had behind me at the time, and Yogi said, for the rest of that season, I was only allowed to ride the older, more advanced horses, and you know, they judge distance themselves, and they're the ones that kind of taught me to be able to readjust. And I think that was a big part of it, was you know, not riding the young horses who wouldn't have been able to help me out when I got it wrong.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And did you find that it took you a year before you could sort of stop thinking, I don't see like I used to see? Did the new normal, when did it sort of take place?
I think it happened pretty quickly, really. I would say by the time I was back competing, I didn't think about it. It was the first couple of weeks just at home messing about that, you know, it was there and I knew about it. But once I got going and actually just cracked on, then I didn't, you know, it didn't really bother me that much.
And the dark glasses came a bit later. What was the reason for them?
Yeah, like we talked about doing it at the time, but I was stupidly worried about what people would think of me. So I struggled on through, not being able to see really. For whatever reason, the sunlight or the wind, the rain, so basically kind of any weather affects my eyes and makes the one that I can see out of run very badly. So when I was going cross country and the wind was going in my face, I sort of eyes were streaming and couldn't see. So it just blocks all that out, and where they're tinted, the bright sunlight can't get in and doesn't then affect it. So it's something I wish I'd done sooner and not worried so much about what people might say or think of me. And yeah, it's a lesson to be learned. But also I think it was, I don't know, one time I had a fly go in my good eye and couldn't see because I can't see out the other one. So I thought, right, now you've just got to stop being pathetic and get on with it. And yeah, never look back.
And do you ever worry when you've got interesting light on a course, sunlight and shade and all that sort of thing, that do the glasses enable you to see where there's shadow?
Yeah, I think it if anything, when it's bright light and you go from light to dark, because I haven't got the bright light because it's already dimmed, there's less of a difference between the light and the dark. So I find it.
But for you, that's all right. But you want to be aware of it for your horse, for sure, when you're going from bright light to dark light. But that was my question, really. Does the wearing of dark glasses cross country actually not give you as much of a feeling of what the horse is seeing?
I think you still know it's just a slightly lesser extreme. You're still aware that it's brighter and then it's darker, and you know yourself. It's you've got used to knowing that what I see is exaggerated for the horse. So I think that you're
Right.
aware of that anyway.
You
Is
still get
sort
a
of
feel for it.
subconsciously.
Because I think we all know when William crashed at Leon Danger, that was this is the last comment on crashing, that he was jumping at that low setting sun in Leon Danger, and the horse just went straight through that circular fence. And I think the sun can cause an awful lot of accidents, and we often don't know where it's going to be because it was never there when we walked it, and so we need to be terribly aware of it. And I was thinking, when you wear dark glasses, can you see something like a setting sun blinding a fence?
Sorry, it just cut out then. I didn't hear you saying that.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Just that I was referring to William at Leon Danger when he was unsighted. I think the horse was unsighted because the sun just got him exactly in the eye as he came to a owl hole. And it would worry me wearing dark glasses that I wouldn't be able to see at that second that the sun had obliterated the fence from the eyesight of a normal of a person wearing no glasses. But you haven't had that worry.
No, in a funny way, I guess I slightly see it in the other aspect that I don't then have the blinding light, so I can potentially see more than what other people can see, because if the sun's blinding the horse, at the end of the day it's probably blinding the rider as well.
Yeah.
And so I at least I can still see the fence and see the distance to the fence, even if and then hopefully help the horse rather than both of us being blinded by it.
That's a really lovely positive take on the situation. I'm going to remember that. That's a really good glass half full, Laura. Well done. I know that recently, and you'll have to tell me how many years ago it was, that you started a new string to your bow, taking racehorses in to teach them to jump, to if they had a bad fright on the race course, to get them their confidence back. A whole new area of fascination for you with a type of horse, a breed of horse that you were less used to, because your event horses that you've made and brought through have mostly all not been straight thoroughbreds. How have you enjoyed this sort of tangent to your career?
Yeah, to be honest, I've actually pretty much done it all the way through, because when I was riding ponies back in 2005, I was based at Mary Hambro's yard, and in return for paying off some of the rent, I used to ride her racehorses and school her racehorses out. So it's something that I've done all the way through. Always ridden out for people, or obviously through Yogi, have also I've been the sort of crash dummy when people sent horses to him to help jump. And then it was a few years ago that trainers just started coming direct to me, because Yogi said that it was sort of pointless him being involved, because I knew more what I was doing, and to just organize direct with me. So it's something that I've always been passionate about and interested in, and I guess in the last few years it's been a bit more publicized because of some of the horses that I've been involved with. But yeah, I've always loved working with the racehorses, and I wouldn't necessarily say I would have them as event horses, the full thoroughbreds, but I've had a couple, and I love working with them from the racing side, because I get a real buzz out of improving them, and something that you can do very easily in a very short space of time, and then love following their careers afterwards.
Do you find a difference in the brains of the horses that you event and the thoroughbreds that you train?
Yeah, obviously they are different, and you have to treat them quite differently. But I've always been a great believer in every horse is an individual, and what works for one doesn't work for another, whatever breed they are. So I've always tried to assess a horse and and be able to figure out how best to work with a horse as an individual, and not sort of group them into warm bloods, thoroughbreds, or anything like that. So I think, you know, that for me, that is one of the most important things.
Yeah, take each one for what he is. Tell me, if a lot of people will say, do as much different sorts of riding as you can to help you develop your balance and your feel and your instincts to major in whatever it is you want to major in. And if you looked at your life with the racehorses, which has gone on even longer than I remembered, what would you say has been the biggest asset they've given you? Is it a sense of understanding speed and balancing at speed? What is it that you feel they've really helped your eventing with?
Reaction. You can't recreate when you go cross-country schooling, is that in the moment when something goes wrong, and that is what I get daily riding the racehorses and teaching young racehorses to jump and things like that, is that they'll leave a leg, they'll step, they'll, you know, you can't adjust them, and you get there on whatever stride you get there on, and that for me is what I found from a personal point of view is been so helpful, is learning to sit up and stay on regardless of what's happening underneath you, and that's something that you can't recreate on your, you know, your well-trained event horses. When you go cross-country schooling, very rarely do they leave a leg or, you know, anything go wrong. So that only really happens then when you're in a competition and when it really matters. And you know, if you're out of practice, then you don't know how to react, and you don't, you know, that instinct isn't there. So I get that from the racehorses.
What a wonderful thing to say. I can imagine 100% that it's a little bit like a rodeo rider, and Jock Paget, the wonderful New Zealand event rider who's won badminton and quite a lot of other things. He used to rodeo ride before he took up the plain clothes life, and I can't imagine what that must do for you, because what you're saying is it's a real reaction practicer, if you like. And I so remember when I came to watch Yogi, he was at your place, and you were riding a racehorse, and you were doing it for my benefit because I was meant to be going to Australia and teaching some jockeys, which was worrying me a little bit. So he came and gave you a lesson so that I would understand what I was aiming at, and boy, you went fast in your, what is it, 60 by 25 or 30 meter arena, and you went flat out down to this little fence, and Yogi just said, you just sit up there and he has to work it out for himself. And I'm thinking, you came from a showing world where life was pretty perfect. I mean, that's half the battle, isn't it? In showing, you have to be pretty perfect. And I remember you saying to me not so long ago that it's reasonably recently that you have realized that it doesn't matter if you're not perfect across country, that you have to be prepared to just make it happen and do it and survive. And that was a huge boost in your cross-country confidence when you realized it, just the perfection side of it wasn't quite so important as it had been in your first life in the showing. Can you give us a bit more on that, and what made you start to realize that? Was there an incident, or was it just over time?
It's probably a few things really. If you want to pinpoint one, it was Bramham 2019 when it was a mixture of a lot of things with London. He'd sort of, you know, he'd come there off the back of, you know, a very good 2018 season. He'd won Blenheim 8-9-year-olds, he won second at Buccleuch, he then won Chatsworth ERM and went to Bramham as, you know, a hot favourite, and I knew, you know, realistically he should have won Bramham. And I just completely got to the point where I'd stopped riding, and I just got obsessed with, you know, worrying about it, trying to look perfect, and thinking that he was too good for me, and that I just didn't want to mess it up. And in trying not to mess it up, I messed it up and let him down because I abandoned him. And when, you know, the whole way along I've always said he's you know, a horse that needed to be, you know, his hand holding and things like that, and I just totally sort of sat there like a lemon and did nothing, and I think that was really the turning point for me mentally, was that just got to the end of the day. Yes, it might walk 4 strides or whatever, but it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter how many strides it ends up being. No one remembers whether you went 4, 5, 6 or anything. It's just they remember if you got from A to B. So yeah, I think that was a real kind of turning point in my head.
You've described it beautifully, but I can't bear not knowing what actually happened. What was it, a stop or a trip, or what happened at Bramham?
He basically got stuck on a fence because it was the hedge with a ditch in front, and I sort of got there on, you know, a bit of a half-hearted stride. It wasn't necessarily a bad distance, but it was more that I just sat like a lemon and didn't actually say we're taking off, and he basically half went to put his front feet in the ditch thinking it was a placing pole rather than an open ditch, which, you know, he's never, you know, never even crossed his mind before, but I've always told him to jump before, so I think he was like, are we jumping, are we not jumping? And he basically caught his stifles very badly on the hedge, and we nearly fell but didn't fall, and then he lost all his confidence. So I pulled him up 2 fences later because he wasn't going. He felt sore and wrong, and I guess mentally as well, I realised that we weren't in a very good place, and it wasn't the time to be. It was only fence 5 or 6 at Bramham, and you don't really go around a course like Bramham not feeling like you're going.
And did you find that Yogi, who's been a huge mentor to you for many, many years, was helping put you back on the road? Did you find that Chris Bartle, who'd by then become team coach, was able to help you? Did you find that you just needed to go off on your own and sort it out? How did you start to re-hold his hand and get his confidence back?
Yeah, Yogi is massive help, and as was also talking to a sports psychologist as well a lot, and think it was just accepting things in my head, and then kind of going back to basics really. I also talked to Pippa a lot about it, and she said just go back and take all the pressure off, take him cross country schooling and ride him like a 4-year-old. And I took him. I went away just on my own, actually, not with Yogi, and just trotted to things and just gave him a long rein, and just let him realise that he could figure things out for himself, and also just took all the pressure off, and for both of us really, and then built up from there. And I think that was key, was just to let everything settle down and stop kind of, I think I idolised him as a horse, and I had to realise that he was a sensational horse, but he did need me as well, to tell him what to do.
Yeah. Did you find that you mentioned that Chris Bartle's course walking was very helpful to you? Because, explain to us why, because you've had what 2, 3, 4 years now with Chris, and you would have walked the course with Yogi a lot, and you would have walked the course with Chris. And where is he a little bit different to what you've been doing before? What does he give you?
He's very good at picking points beyond a fence to focus on to get your line, rather than focusing on a point on the fence. It's always about looking beyond the fence and planning ahead to the next thing. Once you're in line for the A element, you should be looking at the B element and using your peripheral vision to see the A element, rather than actually focusing on it. So it was, and he's also very much, don't worry about the the strides, the number of strides. It's more the line and the pace that you know come into it, rather than thinking it's got to be X number of strides. So I found it really useful. With him, he's very precise with where he wants you to jump a fence, but not necessarily precise on how many strides it is in between. But he's also, he sees lines that sometimes when you walk the course you question, well, I question it, and then once you ride it and you realize that he was bang on with what he, you know, what he saw and what he said. And so it's having that trust that, you know, to stick to the line, even though when you first walk it on your first look you wouldn't necessarily agree with what he says. By the time you've, you know, listened to his reason and then walked it again with that in mind, then you kind of see a different perspective.
Yes, I find it fascinating. Tagged on to walking Po about 3 years with him, and we came to, I think it's fence 12 still, where you run up a bank and jump a fence and straight down a bank the other side, and you had to turn hard right and jump almost to the base of the bank, a sort of Vicarage V type thing. And there was a few people that were walking with him, and they were saying, oh, how many strides after this fence and run down the hill to the Vicarage V, because it was a big fence, and it was 4, was it 5, what was it? And they were sort of almost agitated because Chris wouldn't tell them. And eventually, in his wonderfully quiet way, he just said, well, you really can't tell how a horse is going to land on a steep bank like that. You can't tell if he'll land far or land short, or how he'll travel down the bank. So you really can't make a decision about how many strides. And I thought, well, that's music to my ears, because that's truly what cross-country riding should be about, which is the seat of the pants and the feel. And that's what I feel you have with Yogi's enormous help all the way through your career, have developed this amazing ability to feel what's happening under you. And now the finishing touches, if you like it, because you realize that actually what you look like isn't the key. The key is surviving. So I hugely admire what I've seen, because the wonderful thing about being a bit older is that you actually have so much fun watching people from when they started. And I don't remember very much, but I do remember how people rode when they started. And I always remember you being a very, very good looking rider. And it's interesting that you said that to me not so long ago about, I started to realize that I needed to do more than just look good. And as time has gone on, I've watched you develop your armory, your repertoire. And then we came to Po. I'm nearly in tears thinking of Po, because I saw you ride this course on this magnificent horse that I'd watched you miserably tip over that stupid duck in the Lamoulan water, and everything looked to be going all right. And then near the end that happened. My heart bled for you. And I just thought, oh, here's a girl who's got so much and has worked so hard all her life and has help in many directions. And she keeps getting these awful knocks, and then she does a brilliant thing and wins this and wins that and wins the other, and then that rotten knock. And in fact, really, it's the mirror of eventing, which in itself mirrors life. Things go, and then blah, they all collapse. So to watch you proceed with this wonderful horse. How old is London, by the way?
He's 12 this
12 now, so as an 11-year-old, which they say is, I think, the Grand National Peak, is it? I don't know, I probably got that wrong, 11. But anyhow, you proceeded round Po, which was a reasonably decent course. And you got to nearly the end, and we all know that ending bit on the side of that bank with corners and things. And I'm hoping that Rachel might have the pictures handy, because I absolutely love to show everybody these pictures, because this was when I watched this on video, and it was a very magic moment, having watched Laura really most of her life. So Rachel, I don't know whether she's round the corner. Aha! God, you're efficient.
So I'm hoping, I'm sorry, because I might have it in the wrong way around.
No, this is the first one, isn't it, Laura?
Is it the first one, Laura? Yes.
Well, let's see what the next one is. If it's before, it's not.
Yeah.
So here, Laura, just stop a minute, Rachel. Laura, which element was this?
So this was the B element. So we jumped the house on the top of the steep bank, and then this was on sort of the blind turn.
So you came down the steep bank and turned hard right into this socking great corner.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going, Rachel.
Yeah, that's really easier said than done. Oh, here we go. I found it. Hold on.
God, well
You ready
done.
for this one?
I think it's the bottom.
I tell you what, I think we've missed the first. Oh, I don't know. Right.
Don't worry about it. We're doing fine. You want to go to the. Oh my God! So we all saw this on video, and it was that split second when you thought it's not going to work. And Laura, what did you feel?
Well, I thought I was going to hit the ground, to be honest. He's never hit a fence before, and he's never left a leg, left a front leg anyway, and that's what he did and twisted, and I just thought he was going to peck on landing, and I was going to hit the ground, so I just thought, oh, here we go again.
Exactly. Oh, reminiscing of the Moulin, and you were literally 100 meters from the main arena, which was the finish. And I mean, this all happens, as you can imagine, you guys watching, like that. There's never any time. And this girl, she just stuck with it. And that wonderful horse wasn't used to hitting things. So he wasn't used to having to extricate himself from jail. Pulled himself out, but your balance, and you'd given him what he needed in his head, you kept your balance as best you could, and you survived. And it was at that point that I felt you had really come of age. And I know that sounds a little patronizing because you've won so much before you got to this point, but that was what made me write you a text on Sunday morning, because it was just seriously sensational, this whole survival. I mean, riding a beautiful round is one thing, but surviving when it really does just about go tits up is really the difficult one. And it's a lovely profile. Actually, you're doing incredibly well.
Can I just ask you something, because I'm in control here? There two. Have we got two elements here? Because there's another. The next. Okay, good.
So that's still the A element, and then the other two are the C element, basically.
Well, this is what impresses me is the recovery, to be able to then jump this, the next one.
Oh,
Oh my God, Laura! And then that. Look at him! Wow.
And luckily he's scopy, so he's quite a long way off the corner.
I mean, that is a right angle. Look at it. It's a ridiculous fence. Why would any horse go to the side of that white flag? Why would they keep that on their left? Why wouldn't they just go straight past it? That is training. That is the angle. That is confidence. That is trust. That is partnership. There in that picture is partnership, and the pictures before is survival, and one of its greatest senses of the word. I salute you, Laura. I really do. You have seriously, whatever happens, and we all know that things will go wrong, you'll fall off here, and that's life. We know that. You've made it 100%, and I am so thrilled for you, and my goodness, you deserve it. But I hope now that I try not to let these things wander on for longer than an hour, and we've got about 12 minutes, and Rachel, I don't know, you've done us so proud with those pictures. I'm terribly impressed that we got them up. Thank you. Have you got any questions there that you think might, I'm not sure whether we've got time for that many, but no. I hope Laura can hear.
I sent you, there's some on the chat, which I can read out. And I've also sent you, not on the chat, on the Q&A, but I also sent you some on your phone. So dig that out, because they came off of the Facebook page earlier. So I WhatsApped them to you. But then there's
a very broad one from William Pittendrig, which is, what steps as a rider do you need to take, Laura, to get to the top? E.g. training, horsepower, owners, etc. I mean, how many years have you got, William?
I would say luck. Luck is the biggest thing. Yeah, a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, basically.
Yeah. And how did you get owners? Because that's the financial side is something so difficult, isn't it?
yeah, definitely owners, supportive owners are definitely key. I certainly couldn't do it without their help and support, as in, you know, just look at London, for example. I would never have been able to buy him back then if it wasn't for my lovely loyal owners. So yeah, I owe everything to them, really.
And a interesting one from, I'm going to let you off the hook on Williams because it's a huge and wonderful question, but it's so broad. Georgie Malden, please can you talk about soundness strategies? I get paranoid all my training will cause my precious mare an injury. We jump every other week, so not to over jump, but still want to increase my knowledge.
I think it's very important to build up the you know, the strength and the tools for the horses to be able to cope with the intensity. If you try and save them too much, then you go to a competition and you put them under that bit of pressure that they're not used to, and then that's when injuries happen. In my opinion, is when they don't have the real. It takes a long time to build up the strength and the muscle tone of the horses, and I think doing it in the right way is, you know, there's no easy fix and there's no quick way of doing it. It's the, you know, in the winter time now, it's the hours of hacking down the road and building them up slowly so that they can take it. And you know, it's you know, for me, it's the hardest part is keeping the horses in one piece, and you can't protect them. What I've learned is you can't protect them too much, because in trying to protect them, sometimes you do more damage than good, really.
So true. No, that's a lovely answer. Thank you. And Ali Gill has asked, do you have a training philosophy for training your horses?
I think, as I said earlier, for me, it's very important to treat every horse as an individual. There's no set way. What works for one horse doesn't work for another, and that's, you know, keeping your eyes open and always learning and accepting that you've got to adapt to the horses. I don't believe the horses have to adapt to you. That you have to adapt to the horses.
Great answer. Poppy Berniet, about number of strides between a fence. Do you think about strides at all, or just think about line, canter, power, etc.?
Yeah, I like to walk the distance so that I know, you know, roughly whether it's long or short, rather than necessarily the exact number of strides, but because that then affects your approach, you know, the speed that you come into the fence. But for me, the biggest thing, the most important thing is the line and the balance of you and your horse.
Beauty. Chris Jensen, did the corner survival that we've just enthralled ourselves by watching put a ding in London's confidence? The look on his face says he's got it. So amazing.
Yeah, I've said in many an interview that it was that split moment that for me he went from a boy to a man. If he'd ever lost, you know, lacked a bit of confidence before, he would have still been, you know, traumatized that he'd hit the first corner, and he didn't. He landed and he said that there's still a job to do, and he sort of picked me up and said, come on, we're doing this. And you know, that was for me probably the proudest moment of like my whole career, was knowing what that horse has been through, and for him to do what he did there was in a way better than winning, really. That was winning for him.
It's the epitome of trust and partnership, and that was what you had come to, and it's just thrilling for me to see it, and so lovely to have you comment in that way on it. Now, Robin Stanley from Kenya says, and this is one that I'd love to hear your answer, how do you get your mind set to deal with the bogey fence? Because there are sometimes bogey fences, aren't there?
Yeah, I try not to you know, really focus. I think if you start to focus on one particular fence, then you get a bit obsessed. If
one is causing a lot of trouble, which sometimes it does
think happen. Of the core.
Well,
yeah, I think also what I try to remember is that I'm sat on my horse, and you can sit and watch a lot of other people ride the fence, and if they have a problem, you know, your horse isn't the same as theirs, and you know that you've done everything you can to produce your horse right, and you've got to trust, you know, your partnership, and not be led astray as such by what other people are doing. You can only, what I say, you can only control the controllables, and you can only control, you know, how you're going to ride the fence, and what horse you're sat on. So I try not to get too obsessed with what other people are doing.
You're so right, and I learnt that lesson the hard way, that you know your horse best, and don't listen to, however great that particular rider might be, don't listen to them in so much as you know your horse better than them. And I've made that mistake both in telling somebody who I didn't know well enough, and in feeling it on a horse that I knew was on a very short stride, and the great and good told me that I must ride it on a long stride, and boom. So I do so agree with you. You've got to listen to your horse and know him. Now, we've got a fun little question here. Did you notice a difference, this is Carly Westy, between riding horses and ponies cross country?
I would say I was very lucky, because Noble Springbok, who is my pony, was basically like a horse. I never had a real pony. He used to make horse distances very easily, so I never felt like I really had a big transition from ponies to horses, and also I rode horses alongside my ponies. So I think that for me, watching other people is sort of where sometimes it goes wrong, is they just do ponies, then they swap onto horses having never ridden a horse, and suddenly it's a huge step, and they're expecting to go out and do juniors the following year, and they don't learn to adapt and give themselves time to adapt to the difference in them. But I luckily never had a huge difference, because Spring was basically a little horse.
And Spring was the one that you, Noble Springbok, the one you went out to buy with your mum at 5, and she said, don't buy him because he's the first one we've seen.
Yeah.
Isn't that the best story? Because he's so famous, that horse now. And then you were able to sell him in the end to another pony rider, weren't you? And sort of stay with him, because you were in that stable for a time, I think I remember. So where is he now, or has he finally gone to the great play?
No, he's retired in the field, but he's still at Membury, and yeah, he's won medals with every pony rider that he took to Europeans. He went every year, I think, from 5 till about 16. So yeah, he's one very special pony.
Well, one special bit of training too by you. Now we're nearly there. I've got Indra Morris saying thanks for this and huge respect. So many were so happy about Poe, so deserved. And I think we'd all reiterate that. And I just, before we do switch out, Laura, I just love to ask you what you would really love to achieve now.
I'd like the full set of medals, because I've got ponies, juniors and young rider gold medals. So I need gold medal from seniors, and then a badminton win.
You don't
want much.
I tell you, what we saw at Poe, and what you've been lucky enough to just see some of those pictures, because that's the basis of cross-country riding, is to be able to survive the going into jail moments and get out of jail. And that's what you so marvelously showed us at Poe. And with that, I hope that your expectations and requirements of yourself, because I know you're very tough on yourself, will come through. And I'm sure they will, because you've got an extraordinary ability to choose a horse, as we have seen from Noble Springbok onwards. And you said you took those Welsh ponies off the hills. You must have lived up there, did you, in Wales?
No, didn't live anywhere near Wales, but we just...
that's where you got them from, okay.
That's where we got them from, because they were cheap.
Yeah, exactly. And so for all your life, really, you've been pulling horses in, finding how to understand them, how to train them, and making winners out of them. And you have a huge future. You're only part of the way down the path. You're absolutely ripe and ready for what you want to do now. So the very best of luck, Laura, and thank you so much for coming and giving us an hour of your time. Really appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to say thank you, and I just want to say that there's been people crying in the chat. You people to tears. Chris Jensen says, "Oh great, now I'm crying." Saying about him going from a boy to a man, so that's lovely. I also want to congratulate Lucinda for doing such an amazing job and actually being able to read the questions and do everything well.
Getting there. No, but Laura, you're lovely because you can talk, and it's so nice. And I mean, we know each other a little bit and have enjoyed each other's company a little bit throughout the last 20 years or whatever. But it's so fun to actually hear you put it all together, and I'm learning these lovely words of wisdom coming from you, and it's just great. It's one huge learning curve. You never stop learning, and I know that you'd be the first to agree with that. So
I've taken some really good notes. I've got some great little quotes from you, Laura. I hope you don't mind if I pop them up in the Facebook group. My favourite so far is we couldn't see a stride with 2 eyes. Why can you expect to see one with 1? I think that might have been a bit harsh, but anyway.
I love that, Yogi. And I'll take you further back to Colonel Frank Weldon, who was the genius of badminton, who designed it for the first goodness knows how many years, and also rode in gold medal winning team a horse called Kilbarry. And at some juncture, he cut his finger off. And his trainer, when they were doing team training, because he had to ride with one hand, just said gruffly under his breath, "Well, one hand's a bloody sight better than 2 if they're yours." So it's a similar thing to the eyes and the stride. But you know, Yogi is always going to come up with the right remark at the right time. He's a huge support to very, very many of us in the horse world, and he's going to be on here one day soon too. So Laura, thank you. Rachel, I'm so glad you've got some quotes, and I'm sure Laura won't mind them being popped on Facebook.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura. Right, guys, we're going to say goodbye now. I'm going to stop recording and end it. And thank you very much. And to our newbies, I hope you enjoyed it. We had a pretty good first guest for this is the first time that our new joiners, Laura, have watched one of Lucinda's discussions with her famous friends. So you've definitely set the bar high.
You have, bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.